Alright, so we were talking about anointing the body with oil, especially the feet, as it relates to the sign of Pisces. So let's get into the sign of Pisces. Okay, so first, when I'm talking about the sign of Pisces, I am not talking about those people with their sun in Pisces. I am merely talking about the characteristics and properties of the sign itself. So do your best not to identify with it. I know people say, I'm a Pisces because their sun is in Pisces, but we're made up of all of the signs. You have all of the signs in your chart. I will make a distinction between the sign and those with a strong Pisces placement, which is the sun, moon, or an ascendant that is Pisces. Otherwise, I am merely talking about the sign of Pisces itself. So why am I beginning with the 12th and final sign first? It is the most complicated of the signs, and I'm covering it first because it corresponds with a lot of what we talk about on this channel. If you really want to get a feel for the sign of Pisces, you want to watch the movie The Life of Pi. That entire movie is all about the sign of Pisces. And if you have a strong Pisces placement, you probably liked the movie. If you don't, you probably didn't. It's one of those movies that you're either going to like or not like. And if you didn't like the movie, then that's okay, because that just means that you don't identify or relate to Pisces, which means you probably do not have a strong Pisces placement. And this is a lesson in of itself, because those things that you don't relate to are typically the things that you do not like. But that just means that your planets and signs do not identify with those things. Your planet placements are going to be different. Doesn't make them bad or wrong. It just means that you don't relate to it. The people who don't learn this lesson are the ones who like to argue their point of view with people, as if they're going to change the person's mind, which doesn't work. That's like trying to change their planet placements. It's not going to work. Their planet placements are the ones that they are going to have. Understanding this probably won't help you to achieve world peace, but it will help you achieve peace in your own personal life. Now, for those who haven't seen the movie yet and want to do so spoiler-free, I suggest that you go do that before listening to the rest of this lesson. This movie is not merely about a boy set adrift on a raft with a tiger. This film is about the sign of Pisces. The main character, his name is Pisces, for which he's named after a pool of water. Piscine. Piscine. This movie is about all things Pisces. Tragedy, suffering, extreme isolation, being set adrift. One of the mottos of Pisces is go with the flow, because for the sign of Pisces there really is no other choice but to go with the flow. In the movie he had to go wherever the tides took him. There was always a constant threat or danger, and he had to adapt to his situation. Pisces is the mutable water sign, and there's no doubt there was a lot of water in this movie. There was the underlying theme of God throughout this movie and spirituality. And even the ending was a Piscean ending, and probably the best one that you can hope for a movie about Pisces, because Pisces usually ends in tragic endings. But in this case, you really didn't know if it was real or not. But the way they handled it was that they used symbolism to narrate a story about symbolism of the sign of Pisces. As we said, symbolism is the language of the subconscious mind. And the subconscious is the emotional mind. Emotions correspond with water. Pisces being mutable water, changing water. All of the little droplets have separated. In my garden hose example, I explained that cardinal signs, like cardinal water, would be like it coming out of the hose in a force. And then fixed would be the stream of water, and mutable would be the water breaking up into little droplets and hitting the ground. Pisces has a lot of droplets to choose from. As such, those with a strong Pisces placement can get a reputation for being lazy and not good at anything, when the truth is they're good at everything. They just have a hard time sticking with one thing. The Piscean that can stick with one thing become your Albert Einsteins. But most people with the strong Pisces placement, say that 10 times fast, they have difficulty with sticking to one thing. They're always going with the flow, going from whatever makes them feel good in the moment. And as such, they don't like labels. In fact, all of the mutable signs are your jack of all trades, master of none, with the possible exception of Virgo being an earth sign and more grounded. Pisces is anything but grounded. Those with the strong Pisces placement, I said before, are always daydreaming and kind of off into the ether. And this is because the sign of Pisces is between the worlds. To understand this, let's look at some sacred geometry. This shape is called the Vesica Pisces. It is the shape formed by the intersection of two circles with the same radius, intersecting in such a way that the center of each circle lies on the perimeter of the other. The name literally means the bladder of a fish. And we see this over and over within the flower of life. And so the Vesica Pisces is that area between and comprised of those two intersecting circles. The conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Pisces is between the worlds. And we spend all this time in Magick trying to get between the worlds to communicate and cross-communicate between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Pisces is already there. Those with a strong Pisces placement are already between the worlds. This is why they daydream off into space all the time and are figuring out the universe. They make the best spiritual leaders. And if they're not figuring out the universe, they typically become your musicians, songwriters, poets, artists, able to pull great inspiration out of the astral. These are the ones that can hear and channel unheard music right into their head. My ascendant is Pisces, and as a musician, I know this firsthand. Pisces is the most psychic of the signs because it's between the worlds. So those with a strong Pisces placement, especially the moon in Pisces, will make the best psychics, empaths, and diviners. Now we spend all our time trying to get between the worlds. However, being between the worlds is not that desirable of a place to be all the time. And we talked about before that water is a receptive element. It absorbs. And Pisces is like a sponge that absorbs other people's negativity. If you have a strong Pisces placement, you need to do a regular energy cleansing. A lot of Pisces go through life having random aches and pains, and they go to the doctor, they can't find any cause to it, and they think there's something wrong with them, but they don't know what it is. when what it really is the negativity that they've absorbed off of other people, or just energy that isn't their own. And they can be very sensitive to large groups of people for this reason. I used to have this problem. I would get random pains in, like, say, my arm, and then it would jump to my leg, and then it would jump to my neck. I was always running to the doctor in my 20s, and they could never find anything. And it wasn't until I started cleansing my energy regularly that this wasn't a problem anymore. Now, you can look up how to do this on YouTube or other sources. There's many ways of doing it. I like to use the magnet visualization. So what I do is I lay down on the bed and I envision a huge magnet come up from the earth a few feet away from me. I will do this for each side of my body. So I'll have one magnet at my feet. When I'm finished with that, then one above my head, then one to my left, one to my right, one in front of me, and then one underneath me. And while the magnet's there, you want to visualize all the energy that isn't yours being pulled away from you and off of you onto the magnet. I tend to visualize this unwanted energy as black metallic filings or shavings. And just visualize it coming through your feet onto the magnet for that one. If it's the one above your head, then, coming out through your head and onto the magnet. And after just a couple minutes of visualizing this, you will feel the pull towards the magnet. When that sensation has subsided and you feel that that side is done, you visualize the magnet going back into the ground all the way to the center of the earth, where that energy is recycled and renewed. After all 6 sides are done, you visualize a white light coming down into the top of your head and recharging you. Hold that visualization for several minutes and you're done. Many times you will fall asleep before you get through this exercise all the way. And in that case, it's a good cure for insomnia as well. The most common cause for insomnia is the mind racing. It wants to run and play, so to speak, but give it a task that it needs to focus on and work, and then it gets bored and goes to sleep. Everyone should be cleansing their energy from time to time. Those with the strong Pisces placement, I recommend that you do this regularly and often. Now back to the Vesica Pisces. We talked about how Pisces goes with the flow, is pretty much directionless, and it really has a hard time deciding on what it wants to do because it's good at everything. It doesn't want to be trapped into one thing. And so the symbol for Pisces has become 2 fish that are tied at the tail swimming in different directions that go nowhere because they're heading in opposite directions. And this symbolism is also included within the Vesica Pisces. This is where your Jesus fish comes from. The Old Testament was the age of Aries, full of wrath, righteous vengeance, and war. And the New Testament was during the age of Pisces. The sign of Pisces is very peaceful, very charitable. Its ruler is Jupiter, co-ruled by Neptune. And because it is between the worlds, it is the most spiritual. But it's also the most isolated, because it's neither here nor there. It's between, it's in the middle. And Pisces rules over places that are isolated. Jails and prisons, hospitals, asylums, and not so coincidentally, those places that are most likely to be, quote, haunted. It's because those places are between the worlds. And this is what we mean by closing doors behind you when you do magic. When you're done doing magic, you go and ground yourself. Come back to Earth. You want to get between the worlds to do your magic, but then you want to come back to the real world once you're finished. Remaining between the worlds is leaving doors open. You want to get in and then get back out. For those with a strong Pisces placement, however, this is easier said than done. They have very little trouble getting in. They're already there. More difficulty getting out. And my recommendations for those people are continue with your grounding exercises, clearing your energy regularly, pick a direction and go with it, and finish what you start. And if you do these things, you will become unstoppable. Because Pisces is genius level, unworldly brilliance if it can pick and stick with focusing on one area of expertise. And I think that will about do it for the basics of Pisces, the most complicated sign, and the one most relevant to what we've been talking about, which is establishing communication between the conscious and the subconscious mind. The remodeling work here at my home has not begun yet, but I have a date, and that is January 5th. So I'm going to try to get another mailbag in before then. And I will see you next time. Take care.